Late night, they ain't getting no rest. Work so hard, people think I'm obsessed. Cream at the crop, won't settle for no less. Headed to the top, arena so focused. Yeah, gorilla of the jungle, I've been beating on my chest. I learned from the struggle, it was all just a test.
Hey guys, and welcome back. So today we're going to jump into the charts. We're going to take a look at a few different assets that are showing some good relative strength. We're going to take a look at the macro quickly. We're not going to get too far into it. I want to focus on Bitcoin and some altcoins that are showing some promising setups and could present opportunities going forward here. So we're just going to jump into our other screen here, take a look at our chart. First thing I want to look at is US dollar dominance, so the DXY index. Taking a look here, essentially what we see, kind of these little extensions here where we get that 50-day breaking above the 200-day moving average as we saw here. Price holding above that, ultimately coming back, retesting our Fibonacci support zone here before breaking out and going on a new leg up. So these big breakouts here, generally speaking, these aren't bullish for risk on assets. We start to see people, selling, moving back into the US dollar. That's really what gives it this strength. We kind of saw that happen here. We have a similar thing over here after this breakout. Look at that, just coming back testing that 618. We also got a little rally here outside of it, coming back, retesting that same level here, so sweeping the lows, holding those lows and going on that next rally out. So right where we are now, we're currently at that 618. So if history is to repeat or rhyme, we could see something like this play out, especially in a risk off or recessionary type scenario. That being said, we're not going to really know if we're in that until it kind of comes. By the time, I've said it before, by the time that everyone has agreed we're in a recession, most of the damage in the stock market has already been done. Markets are forward looking, so we need to take advantage of the opportunities as they come. We were dollar cost averaging dynamically into the SPY and the NASDAQ around the lows, just targeting these Fibonacci levels, but ultimately we're just watching this. We want to see a continued breakdown back towards this trend line. The most bullish case scenario is going to be breaking below this trend line, coming back, retesting it, getting rejected, and continuing to lower targets on the downside, allowing that relief for our markets to start running, go on more of a counter trend rally. But for now, we just see holding that 618. We got to continue watching this. The US 10-year here down a little bit today, still holding quite strong above that 4% target there. So for now, the US 10-year remains elevated. Stocks are down today. Interesting to see finally a day where both the 10-year are down and the stocks are down as well. Volatility is up a little bit here, up about 5%. So still kind of within that more volatile area. We also see here holding above the 50-day and the 200-day, getting a little bounce here. So not ideally what we want to see. We want to see volatility trending down. So we're going to flip over to the SPY, take a quick look here. Essentially what we see is this targeted zone in through here. So I want to talk a little bit about high time frame versus low time frame confirmation. So if we flip our chart over here to the daily, I'm going to show you how the chart looks a little bit different here. We came in, we put in a low, we put in a higher high. We weren't able to take out this higher high here. So technically speaking, I would consider this the first higher low. We've got a higher high on the daily. So if we come back here, back test this area here, this is a daily gap fill zone. So I'll zoom in and show you that. Pretty much what we saw here, the S&P opened up and it opened above here. It creates these daily gaps in the chart. More often than not, the price will come back, fill these gaps so they can offer good swing trade opportunities. And if we look for some confluence here of support, we can also see that we've got a bit of a trend line forming. So we can see this trend line here. And we also see our 200-day moving average coming in here, as well as our 8-day and our 21-day EMA moving averages right here. So we do see there's a good amount of support right along here. Ideally, we need to hold these lows here. So we need to hold 507 to continue up in this uptrend, or for this daily uptrend to continue. Let's take a look at our momentum indicators, see how those are looking, and see if we can get a little idea of what might be the most likely price action. So we see RSI curling over, MACD coming up but curling over a little bit. and just kind of neutral here on the directional movement index. So for now, we're kind of just chopping away, looking to see what happens. I expect a retest of support. We can take a look at some of our other indicators here. Yeah, so we do see stuck under that VRVP point of control and stuck under that 50-day moving average. So we have resistance above and support below. We're in no man's land. Wait for those higher lows and that continuation from this trend line. If you're going to enter this trade, you might look at potentially buying a little bit at this support zone here, this daily gap fill with confluence of the upsloping trend line, but ultimately we could retest back to lower targets. If we take our Fibonacci support here from the low to the high, we see that 618 target lining up with this low. That's potentially another opportunity to enter there with a stop loss below support. Just be mindful if we do break down, that's that bearish price action. So we want to see a little more. I mean, we've already broken this high, but if we can get a little bit more of a push up, come back, retest this support zone here, get above our VRVP point of control, come back, retest the 50-day moving average, then we're above the 50-day, we're above the 200-day, we have uptrending price action on the daily, we're above our VRVP point of control, and assuming that our momentum indicators look good, we can continue holding that trade to the upside, continue trailing those stop losses up. But yeah, so my plan for here, just sitting on my hands, waiting either for a retest of this daily gap fill zone here, that's around 430, kind of around 530, down to about 530. A bit of a swing trade entry, but ultimately you want a target entry closer here to that Fibonacci support zone. So anywhere down closer to 500, you might look at dynamically adding to those positions in the SPY. NASDAQ here also kind of in a similar situation, although more bearish price action on the DMI here. So we need this trend line to hold. I see a support zone in through here with the 200-day moving average. We're going to watch this. If price comes back in and it looks good on our momentum indicators on the lower time frame, so we see here on the 4-hour, 4-hour also overheated. We need these to reset. So what I want to see is price come back here, retest this support zone here, hold this support zone, holding that higher high, higher low structure, and I want to see all these indicators essentially reset themselves. So RSI coming back down, giving us that setup for another leg. Same thing with the MACD, and same thing with this DMI. I want to see that ADX line curling up, breaking above the orange negative line to really push that positive line up in a more sustainable trend. Right now, this red ADX line is at 18. That's not a very strong trend, so we want to be 20 to 25 or higher. That signals this kind of the beginning of a stronger trend, and then we can look at utilizing that and potentially get into the positions. But you can see here essentially the difference between the daily and the weekly. Here we've got one higher high, one higher low, another higher high, looking for that subsequent higher low. When we flip to the weekly chart here, you do see, it doesn't look as good in terms of trend. We only have the one higher high and one higher low right now. We're waiting for that confirmation, continued higher highs and lows on the weekly. If we take a look at our momentum indicators, coming from very oversold territory on the weekly as well. So as long as we have that set up on the low time frame as well as the high time frame, that's going to give you the most confirmation of trend, and it's also going to take away the most risk in these positions. So NASDAQ targeting this zone in here, you're looking at about 19,000 down to about 18.5 for the NASDAQ as a potential entry. Pretty down across the board here for the Dow Jones IWM. Gold getting a little bit of relief here after a nice dump, continuing its uptrend. So gold showing that strength again, just continuing on. Silver kind of flat on the day, putting in that lower low, lower high. So silver looks like it could be reversing trend here. Be careful if you're in silver. We might break below, back test the underside of this 50-day moving average. If we do, that's going to look a little bearish in my opinion, and you could look at de-risking a silver position. But for now, we'll see. It's just holding here, but we'll see if it kind of follows gold or if it follows the rest of the market. I'm going to flip over to crypto really quick. We're going to take a look at USDT dominance. We're going to look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin, and we're going to look at some altcoins as well. So we see here USDT dominance, bearish momentum kind of we see was favored here, but the RSI is curling back over. We're getting a little bounce from the 200-day moving average right there. I also showed you this prior example in the last cycle. So essentially we had this kind of wedge or this upwards channel. We came up, we broke down from it, we back tested the 0.5 Fibonacci before taking off and putting in a pretty substantial run here for USDT, and that was ultimately the bear market for altcoins and Bitcoin. So over here we're in a similar situation. We came in somewhat of a double bottom scenario. We came back, we're currently at that 0.5 Fibonacci. I'll show you that. We pull it from the swing low to the swing high. Same similar area. So if history were to repeat or rhyme, we could be looking at this just being that relief rally, counter trend rally before we go into the bear market continuation. So I've got this written right here. If we break up, you know, we're likely to go, and that's more of that signal of that bear market move. If we start to break down, we could get a more sustainable leg up in Bitcoin and alts, hopefully hitting some of our larger price targets. Flip over to Bitcoin here. So essentially lots of drawings. I'll clean it up a little bit. These are our targets kind of for a cycle, a new cycle high, if we can break out and maintain this structure here. So still a lot of work to be done. We see on the weekly, we're looking like we're still, you know, just, you know, straight up here. So big break from these lows where I do expect a retest of support. Nothing goes straight up or down. We're coming into all this resistance up here. So I do expect, you know, we're going to get a retest, come back here. So we're going to flip to our low time frame and see where the probable area of entry might be for that retest. We can kind of see here, this is what resembles a bit of a head and shoulders pattern, but we can see, you know, bearish rising wedge. I've pointed this price pattern out before. This is a bearish price pattern. We saw we come up, put in bearish rising wedge, lower highs, that's a bad signal, coming up and getting rejected below it. We're currently in this zone of support. I'm looking at potentially entering a swing trade around 92,000. I'm also going to flip over here. I've shown you this Bitcoin liquidation heat map. We see right here, we've got, you know, we're close. We just took out this liquidity here at 93,700. There's a bunch of liquidity down here, kind of at 92,800. So under 93,000 might start to look to build a little bit of a swing trade position on Bitcoin, ultimately trying to capitalize on the move that potentially pushes us back up and grabs this liquidity to the upside. So I talked about that previously. Lots of the times this price just gets pushed between these liquidation levels, stopping out as many traders as possible, making lots of money for the market makers, and wrecking as many people as possible. It just seems to play out. So if we come back down under 93, look at building that swing position with a target to take out the liquidity up here towards 96,000. That could be a swing trade opportunity. Looking at the Bitcoin ETF, this is promising because we have over $3 billion of inflows over the past week. So want to see that continuing here. Nice to see though, big inflows after some sustained selling, allowing us to get some relief. But we don't know if this is a counter trend rally that's going to take us to new highs, or if we're going to go to lower macro highs and ultimately break down. So what we see here, we're quite extended. Basically from this point here, we are very extended on the 4 hour. So we can take our Fibonacci tool, look for the most aggressive entry is going to be in this zone here, targeting that liquidity that I just talked about. A safer entry, if you want to be wait patiently, look to enter down here towards that 50-day moving average, or even down towards this 786. So you can see that long down sloping trend line we've been stuck under. We finally broke out of that. Imagine we come back to that 786, perfectly retest this area. You know, it's not the craziest thing to think. People think, oh, you know, we're at 93 now. There's no way we're going back into the 80s. My experience tells me that if the Fibonacci's say it's possible, it is a possibility. And so many times people have questioned, you know, do you really think it can return to those levels? And as long as the analysis supports that thesis, then yes, I do think there is the potential that we return to these levels. It doesn't scare me. It's us just additional opportunities to take advantage. So when we flip, like I said, to the higher time frame, this chart, it doesn't look as crazy as a move here. So we can see we would still come back, look to build that position between the 618 and 786. So 82,000 up to 85,000 for a Bitcoin. That's going to be a good potential medium term trade. And then ultimately we've also got this larger zone stacked down here. This is that 200-day as well as the high time frame Fibonacci support. So we have a few different ways to play this. Most aggressively, kind of scalp trade type scenario. So when I say a scalp, what I'm saying is we're targeting a smaller move, looking to capitalize on kind of a quick little pump. Kind of, that's why I like that liquidity levels. Often we just pump into that, you know, that's the target, and then you might go a little bit higher before reversing. But so for now, swing trade, scalp trade right in through here. You know, maybe looking at buying some Bitcoin closer to that 50-day moving average. Wait for that retest, that higher low on the daily at least, if not the 3-day or the weekly. Ultimately, though, we could revisit lower targets down here below. It's kind of near $75,000 per Bitcoin. Looking at also taking advantage of that. And worst case scenario, this is our bear market accumulation zone. So we're going to enter dynamically in through all these zones, and then we will ride them to the upside and look to add to those positions as it makes sense. So not getting too aggressive yet, but recognizing there is some value within this zone. You can see how it acted as support and resistance in the past all through here. So if we can flip this zone back into support, it's going to look really good for Bitcoin in the near term. We could even give us the chance to break back above this trend line, and then, you know, all bets are off once we're above this trend line in high time frame uptrending structure. If the indicators look good, we can easily push up, especially if those ETF inflows continue. That could really push us at least to the highs up here. So I'm cautiously optimistic. As I said, you know, still not a lot of advancements when it comes to the macro side of things in terms of trade wars, tariffs, you know, still exist, still in the room with us. You know, nothing's really kind of been sorted out or come to a deal. So we have to continue monitoring that. I'm going to point out a few coins that are performing very well that I kind of want to focus on. So Fetch AI is one that I'm watching. We saw here breaking out of this long downtrend. So we see right through here, big long downtrend breaking out. We have this Fibonacci here. We can take it down to this swing low. So ultimately what we want to see, a very short term aggressive play on Fetch, is going to be trying to long this trend line here. I'll take a look at the very low time frame. We can kind of see it is looking like it wants to bounce, but this is kind of bearish price action, guys. So when I show you, look, we were uptrending, higher highs, higher lows, broke down below support, back tested, rejected, tested it again, rejected again. So we want to see either a breakout, hold this with higher lows. It's just a little riskier right now. If you're going to enter Fetch, I have a very small position. I have a little bit of a swing trade open, as well as some spot Fetch that I purchased in January. So we're sitting in profit on the spot position. And the swing trade is just about break even for now, so I haven't risked very much on that swing trade. I do think that we could see that further retracement. Looking for that entry closer to 54 cents for Fetch. Look at that confluence of that downsloping trend line, 50-day moving average, as well as that 618 Fibonacci. So watch 54 cents for Fetch as a potential entry. AIOZ is another one that was performing very well. It was riding up this trend line. We have broken below it, but as long as we can hold this support zone here, I do think we could continue higher. So AIOZ, I also have a swing trade open. I was up about 20% on it. I did take a leveraged position, so it moved about 4%. I had 5x leverage, so a 20% move in about just overnight there. So I took some profits off the table just because, you know, I trade and I invest. That is my primary source of income. So when I make money, especially really short and quick scalp or swing trades, I want to secure those profits and compound those profits because that is my main source of income. So everyone's situation strategy is a little bit different. AIOZ, though, continues to look good, show strength against Bitcoin. We take a look at our momentum indicators. They're looking good. RSI curling curling up. MACD also flipped red just briefly, but also curling up, and we see that DMI negative orange line coming back towards there. So this is a good setup for AIOZ. That's why I'm holding partial of the position and waiting to see what happens. If we can break out, continue to look to add on higher lows for that confirmation of continued trend. Tau is another one that's just performing very well, but I'm saying exercise a caution with this one for sure. Like, look at this run, just full huge extension, breaking out above all the moving averages, broke out of that long downtrending trend line we saw on the weekly. So pretty much what we saw here. I should flip to the daily, make it a little bit more visible for you. You saw we had this trend line, we broke back above it briefly, but ultimately didn't end up taking it out. So came back down, tagged lower support zones, broke out here, higher low, higher high, wait for that higher low entry, retest of that 50-day moving average. We can see if we pull our Fibonacci, we'll look and see what might be a realistic entry right there. So kind of, yeah, that 0.5 Fibonacci. Because Tau showed so much strength recently, you could look at entering around the 50-day moving average and that 0.5 Fibonacci, and then dynamically add to the position closer into that golden zone. Also this retest of this horizontal support. We'll also look at Virtual. Virtual is just pumping like mad right now, so not even giving us that opportunity for our swing trade entry yet. It might still happen though, I will show you, so keep an eye, look for that retest, get in if we get that opportunity. The indicators look good. We'll flip to the low time frame and I'll show you. They had again this bearish wedge, so we broke down, but we actually got back above it. So this is really bullish. You know, if we can break above these highs, put in that higher low, then we could also potentially look at taking a swing trade with Tau here, and with kind of a stop loss down below this support in here. So you would have the wedge trend lines supporting it, as well as this low here. So something like that. I'm not chasing this because this is a crazy move. Wait for the higher time frame retest, as I always say. You know, looking at the 786, 80 cents up to about 92 cents could be that potential opportunity for Virtual. So those are a few that I'm just looking at right now. I've noticed that AI coins are really performing very well. So Virtual's done well, AIOZ's done very well, Tau's pumping, Fetch AI is pumping, Render's also showing great relative strength. So focus on the coins that are showing really good relative strength to Bitcoin, the ones that are moving early and moving hard. Right now it seems like that's the AI coins. It kind of makes sense when you think about this cycle as a whole. AI coins were some of the first ones to really start moving once things kind of picked up. So I'm not surprised to see AI again kind of front running all the other altcoins for now. You know, AI continues to be a massive focus of TradFi, so I also continue to expect that to translate into Bitcoin and crypto. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a few different ideas looking at potential setups. We just need to be patient, let those entries come to you. Don't buy into resistance, buy support, buy when things are cheap, and then realize those profits to the upside when they come. So awesome. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.